Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
I really like my next guest. I think she's a top woman. I really do. Top lady. She came on the programme a few months ago, before the summer. She's written 2 terrific books, Chief Whip, Diary of a Dominatrix and Whipping Up a Storm. And I thought of her. You know, I mean, she's on Twitter and I see her tweeting regularly. And she's good fun. She's always got something interesting to say. But in light of all those millionaire peers flying in to vote for tax credits, people like Andrew Lloyd Webber and people like that, I started to think about, you know, what these people really think of the poorest people in society, the working class, if you want to use that term. And I thought, well, there aren't many people who's met as many of these people, rubbed shoulders with them, and worked with them, as has my next guest. We remember her, of course, talking about George Osborne. She knew George Osborne well. Last year she was arrested for tweeting or putting out a picture of George Osborne in her flat. Let's just welcome her back to the show. Terrific to welcome back Natalie Rowe. Natalie, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and thanks for agreeing to come back on again. Lovely to be chatting to you.
Thanks for having me back.
And listen, it's a pleasure. We don't do negative stuff now on the programme, but I'm going to ask you because I couldn't help but notice today, and not for the first time either, that you're getting a bit of stick. Now, of course, we're not surprised by that because of some of the things that you've said and the books you wrote and that. But you have been getting a little bit of stick and 1 or 2 threats. Are you okay with that? What's happening? What's been happening today?
You get people. I mean, I get sometimes. I had a particular DM, direct message on Twitter last night. I get a few of those, and normally I just ignore them. I'm not sure how Twitter works. I thought that you could only DM someone if you were following them, but maybe this person had good intentions. But when people tweet, DM me and say things like, be careful what you're saying. You never know, you might end up having an accident, inverted commas. You kind of think, is this some kind of veiled threat? I'm not fazed by it. It's just kind of annoying that you think you might somehow that something could happen. But I'm not prepared to sit back and not voice my opinions and say what I think the public needs to know. So for those who think they can scare me with their veiled threats, water for ducks back for me.
Good on you, girl. Good on you. Absolutely right. And we must mention at this point that Natalie is kind of used to this because before she published Chief Whip, the memoirs of a dominatrix, you had a bit of hassle, didn't you? Because before it was actually due to come out, you had the police around at your flat saying that they were looking for drugs. And talk to us about that. I mean, you were properly harassed before the book came out.
I'd been harassed prior to the drug raid, inverted commas, but on that particular occasion, it was quite extraordinary because the police officer pretended to be the postman. I could see through the peephole that he wasn't a postman. He then said he would leave the parcel out. I said, leave the parcel outside, which I thought was odd. And he then did that. And then I looked at the peephole, and before I knew it, I just saw a bunch of, 9, 12 men in black. They weren't in the regular police uniforms. They were in that kind of terrorist type. I don't know, all in one number.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, was like, open the door. And I wasn't properly dressed. Anyway, I opened the door because they were going to break it in anyway. But what I found extraordinary was the conversation that this police officer was having with me, which was, because I mentioned, why didn't you just use a sniffer dog? It would have saved,
a lot of hassle.
12 police officers. And he said, with a wry little smile, can't afford a sniffer dog because of the cuts. And I was like, but I didn't say anything about George at the time. I was just thinking, I laughed in my own mind. And then at some point they asked me about my memoirs, and I asked him how he knew. But obviously I was in a very hostile situation. I was locked in my living room while they were going around my apartment, wouldn't let me, and by law I'm allowed to speak to a lawyer or have somebody there to witness what's going on.
Can I ask you a question, Natalie? Did you worry then? Because if they came to my house, now I'm small fry, nobody's interested in me at all, and I mean that. But if they came here and they said, right, Mr. Allen, you've got to stand in there and we're going to have a search. Me being paranoid, Natalie, I would think, well, the lousers, they might plant something. Did that occur to you?
Sorry, what was the question? I didn't quite hear you.
They might plant something. You know, I would have thought, I would have been worried about that.
Well, you know something? Look, I said to them, if you find any drugs in my home, you will have planted it, because there isn't any. And he said, we don't do that anymore.
Anymore.
Those days are gone. Which means, what do you mean you don't do that anymore?
Yeah.
You find that you did used to do that? They found nothing. But I was more concerned with the fact that I was actually held prisoner. The door was shut, didn't know what they were doing. For all I know, they've got, there could be bugs in my house right now. I have no idea what they were doing. I just felt that I was held prisoner, and, at the end of the day, they found nothing, and they ended up on the front page of the Sunday People, and they looked stupid. But the reason is, in my mind, is why on earth. I asked them, what made you think that there was drugs in the house? And they said it was an anonymous phone call. And I pointed out that if I made an anonymous phone call about my neighbour, wouldn't you at least do some surveillance on her property?
Yeah.
It was all a stitch up. It was to scare me.
It was. And do you know what was funny about it, Natalie? Because I remember at the time, it was undoubtedly a stitch up, and it was undoubtedly to send you a message. But it had... they must have known it was going to backfire on them, because it obviously gave you publicity. The book, which was going to do well anyway, because it's the sort of book that we all like to read, they basically just kind of shone a big spotlight on the book, didn't they? It kind of backfired on them.
I think what we were trying to do was intimidate me and frighten me and show you this is what we can do to you anytime we want to. There was I don't know if there's 10 or 12 of them. There was one black officer who seemed to be the most hostile of the bunch, to be fair, and, I don't want to say because he was black, but he happened to be black, and I'll say that it is.
Yeah, well, you were black.
But he was the worst out of it, and at that point, I wasn't even properly dressed, and I said, I need to get my clothes on, and he said no, and I kind of barged past and insisted, and I shouted at him and said, you don't effing tell me what to do, and I did. It crossed my mind at that point that something could go wrong, and they could say she's resisting arrest, and I could actually end up dead.
Yeah,
there was nobody here to
because
witness it.
Yeah,
So it was kind of, it was a precarious situation, but I made a stronger stuff, and I think the next time they come, they'd better come with the drugs with them. It's unlikely they will try that madness again, but you never know. I mean, I've had lots of situations that have occurred since. Regarding the police, and I think the fact that they ended up on the front page of a Sunday paper kind of curbed it slightly, because I don't think they expected that to happen.
It gave them a moment of pause, as we say, Natalie. It gave them a moment to think. Do you want to remind our listeners, in your own words, and you can take plenty of time, how, when you were on first, we spoke about how you came to Britain as a young girl, but tell us how you came to be... rubbing shoulders with, through working as a madam, how you ended up rubbing shoulders with George Osborne, some of the Bullingdon boys, politicians, bankers, people with lots of money. Talk to us a little bit about that. Remind our listeners, because it's fascinating. Okay,
I'm going to try and make it as concise, because this could take about
you could go on all. I know you could go on all night.
Yeah. First of all, I want to make it quite clear that I didn't leave my home in Yorkshire because I had a bad life or a bad upbringing. I was just a very wayward, wild child and wanted to do something different, etc. And I'd had loss of a family member. I was pretty down, and I wanted to go to London, and that was so. I wasn't one of those typical. I've met girls that have had really abusive lives and sexually abused, etc., and all kinds of stuff has gone on, and they need to escape their home. I left home because I wanted to. I was traumatised by the death of somebody close to me. And so when I came to London, fast forward, I then was working for as a hostess and then an agency who didn't give black girls the best jobs. So I decided that I'd open my own, which I then did, and realised there was a market for it. And so then I decided to open an agency that just only specialised in women of colour. And then fast forward, I then met my son's father, who then introduced me to a different kind of crowd, which was the Osborne bunch.
Now, talk to us about how different they are, because this is really interesting. And when I first saw you being interviewed a couple of years ago, I was watching you being interviewed, and I was really fascinated by this. Because
Which interview was that?
Oh, it might have been an interview you did on TPV, I think. So we're going back. We're going back about three. We're going back about three. Not even maybe 2.5 years. We say different. These were a different crowd. What was different about them?
Well, they were quite fascinated by me in the sense that I wasn't fazed by their arrogance because I didn't feel that I wasn't equal to them, and I think they were quite surprised by that because they would ask the most ridiculous questions. I think I've said this before. You know, they'd never met anyone that lived in on an estate or a council flat or, which I didn't, by the way, but they wanted me to talk about, and also they said that I was a different type of black person, and I somehow became their kind of novelty, but I was in control of them in the sense that I think that when they go to public school, they have their nannies and their, the mistress of the school that looks after them, etc. And I kind of took that role and would put them in their place. But what I couldn't bear, still can't understand why, is that they were so arrogant when it came to people out of their own circles. You know, according to George, and I'll give an example. We were in a cab going somewhere, and there was about 4 of us in the cab, black cab, and they were being so rude to this black cab driver. It was absolutely excruciating how rude they were being, and absolutely just being so mean to him. And Osborne called him a peasant. It was kind of like, what kind of job is this? I mean, it was almost as if he was, who would do this ridiculous job? But I was trying to calm them down. And there would be more seen to the point where when we all got out, basically, so when we got out the cab, the cabbie, which I'm sure is unusual, I gave him a £50 note to pay the fare, and he actually drove off with my change. And I was like, what? Because of the, I suppose he was disgusted at what he'd been listening to. Now, is what you're describing, is the way he had contempt for the cab driver, was that kind of Bullingdon boy behaviour? Did that club have anything to do with the way he was calling a driver a peasant, mocking him, being rude to him? And how typical was that? It was extremely typical. I think I probably said this. I can't remember if we just, talked about this on the last time I was on your show. But since and I sent my three of my girls that worked for me at the time for the agency to the Bullingdon club, and they treated them so badly. I wasn't there because I was pregnant at the time and couldn't go. Not that I would have gone and involved myself, but I would have gone and overseen. But these Bullingdon boys, these girls meant to dance and strip. They couldn't even get their clothes off fast enough. They were like beasts. They were shouting and jeering, calling them derogatory names, and started to pull at their clothing. I mean, to the point where the police were called at some point at the end of at some point in the evening, the police were called.
And was Osborne was there? He would have been involved in some of this, would he?
Yes. Oh, he was there. And the thing is,
can I just remind people, Natalie, sorry to interrupt you, and I won't do it again, I promise you. I won't. I just want to remind people. Natalie is talking about the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the man in the second top job, the second most important job in British politics, the guy in charge of the purse strings. This is who she's talking about now, who she's written about in her books. And
Can I just add that there's more than George in the book?
Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, of course, yeah. And we got to say that. It's not exclusively about Osborne. It's about others as well and this sort of culture. So, Natalie, can I ask you this, and then I'll shut up then and let you carry on. So, some listeners will be thinking, is this just stupid, drunken behaviour by young men with too much money and no maturity? Or is it more serious? Is it more ingrained into their character and into their being? What do you think?
It's innate in their being.
Right.
They're brought up with that mindset. And I'm, to make it quite clear, I'm not being biased. My son's father is from that ilk.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much the same, but obviously he treats me differently. Well, basically they all treat me differently because I won't tolerate it. But I can see, I know that it's almost as if they can't help themselves. But in Osborne's case, as I've, because what I know of him and what I'm seeing now, he has a particular syndrome going on in his mind where he needs to prove to his peers that he's as equal as they are, because he was the one that they bullied the whole time. He was the one that they scorned on. He was the one that didn't go to Eton, and he was the one that had to continuously, be the top dog. And I think he's suffering from that experience, because not only does he have contempt for anybody that's not in his world, he also is particularly keen on proving something. And I don't know if it's 100% because he's that 100% of an evil person, or it's because he needs to prove to the big boys, I can do this job. But either way, they're laughing at him, because before he even got into the Conservative Party in 2005, was it 2005? Well, when they were not 2005, sorry, that was
it's a bit earlier than that, when he became an MP. Yeah.
But it wasn't 2005. But I think anyway. No, it wasn't 2005, was it? It was 2010, etc. I know a lot of people that know him, or without going into naming names, that are in the Conservative Party, members, or maybe in government. And they, I spoke to a couple of people before I broke my story in 2005. And they, one particular person said, I'll give an example, said, we don't want him. He's not cut for the job, but we're going to use him. And so, because I wanted permission to run the story, because I didn't want to lose all my contacts. George Osborne, I cannot see him becoming PM, because there's a little, they don't really look up to him, but he's trying to do the job, inverted commas, of being hard. But what he's actually doing is causing an uproar, because people cannot go around starving, hungry, and it's such a contradiction. This high wages, low benefits. It's a complete farce. What is he doing?
I got to ask you this. Huge interest in this on Twitter. You can tweet at Richie Allen Show, email richie@richieallen.co.uk. I saw you a few weeks ago. I was on a holiday, or I'd just come back from holiday, and the Lord Ashcroft published his book, Call Me Dave.
Oh, yeah.
And in the book, he talked about a ritual that Cameron would have taken part in, David Cameron, of course, at one of these, or in one of these societies. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard a lot and I've seen a lot as an independent media reporter, and I know that weird ritualistic things go on, but even that kind of left me with, no pun intended, a bad taste in my mouth. I thought, you have to be kind of sick.
Were you really that shocked? Because I wasn't.
No, not shocked, but I thought to myself, I know they get up to a lot of stupid things, but I thought to myself, to be doing that, there's obviously something a bit more to that, but we won't get into that tonight. You weren't shocked, of course, because this sort of behaviour, you knew all about it, and you tweeted Pigeongate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to tell, because a lot of our listeners won't know this. I'm going to set this up. David Cameron has been accused by Lord Ashcroft of inserting his penis into the mouth of a dead pig as part of an initiation ritual. Natalie's not one bit surprised by it. I didn't think she would be.
I wasn't surprised, because I knew something that had gone on that was even worse.
That was even worse than that. Tell us about what went on. I want our listeners to listen carefully to this. Tell us about Pigeongate.
I'm quite wary of this thing. It's something I don't even like to repeat, because I love animals.
Yeah.
And it's not a nice description I'm about to give. But, when I was hanging around with George and Christopher Coleridge was there, and William and a few of the other bodies, and they would talk about what they used to do, to initiate certain cat people into the club. And it went from, electrocuting somebody, and they would laugh about who likes being electrocuted more than the other person, etc. But specifically, this pigeon incident that George described to me has always stuck in my mind. I didn't put it in the book because I didn't think anyone would believe me, and I didn't think it was something that I really wanted to repeat. But when the pig gate came out, I thought, well, you know what? I need to tell them what I know. And basically, what would happen, or happened on that particular occasion, from what George was relaying, was that they would take a squab, which I now know is a baby pigeon.
A baby pigeon, yeah.
Or baby bird, I'm not sure. I think it's a baby pigeon. And they would hold someone. I mean, please forgive me, anybody that's listening, if it's...
Well, we're past the watershed, and it is disturbing. And I don't want to be pushing you. I did say before the show I never push anybody, but this is vitally important.
I'm going to try to explain it in the way that's not...
you can be as graphic as you want now.
Too gruesome. Basically, the baby pigeon's head would be inserted into the buttocks of whoever they chose, which normally was somebody that was new and younger and weaker. He would be held down, and the pigeon's head would be inserted in
his rectum,
in his bottom.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that the baby squab is alive, and it would be inserted. It would peck away until it suffocated, and it would cause the person pain and also a lot of distress. It's disgusting. I hate repeating it, and I don't think I will again after tonight.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. But I thank you for saying it.
It's disgusting. But that kind of behaviour to me is psychopathic.
But you know what? You took the words out of my mouth. To say it's psychotic is an understatement. I'm going to repeat what Natalie said, and then I'm not going to repeat it again either. George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, told Natalie that one of the Bullingdon Club rituals for young members was that they would take a baby pigeon, insert the head of the bird into the incumbent, the guy who was being initiated. They would insert the head of the bird into his rectum until the bird expired, until the bird died. You must have been absolutely horrified when they were telling you that. I mean, you're obviously a really big personality, Natalie. You're obviously a strong woman, but you're a woman and you have a heart and you have empathy with animals. What did you think when they were telling you that?
I mean, they didn't just talk about the pigeon. They talked about other things that they did. So it was included in a lot of other, things in that situation that they would inflict on someone, and it was said to me in a very laughing, joking manner. And you've got to remember that at the time when I was involved with these guys, I didn't see them as... I didn't see George particularly as the evil shit he is now. At the time they were telling me, you're kind of, because I'm used to that kind of behaviour, it was kind of like, oh my God, why? And they just laughed at this as if it was nothing. And can I just make a point? I did tell, when the News of the World first came to me through Max Clifford for the first story in 2005, I did tell the journalist at the Times, Sarah Newar, about the pigeon. And she said, we can't put that in. The readers won't believe it. So it's not, so it was out there. How ironic, Natalie. They won't believe it. Yet Ashcroft releases his book where he, talks about what Cameron did. How ironic. But what annoys me is it took Ashcroft. You see, Ashcroft can write a book about Cameron putting his willy into a pig's mouth.
Yeah.
And everybody can, jump on that. And yet, had I come out with my Pigeon Gate story, call it Pigeon Gate now, in 2005 or whenever, nobody would have believed me, and yet they believe him. And I'm kind of grateful that he's written the book and he's mentioned that, because it kind of opens the door for people to say, well, you know what, I can kind of maybe toy with the idea that what she's saying is true, or I believe her or not. But if you can do the pig, Pigeon Gate isn't too far away from that. So to me, I think Ashcroft's book in a way did me a favour, because it kind of can let the readers realise that this is the way these people behave. I've always said this all along how they behaved. And I think it just gave me a stamp of approval that maybe she's not crazy. Maybe this is all true. It is all true.
Let's give a quick plug to the books, by the way.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, I've read the books and they're terrific.
Did you enjoy it? I know there's a few grammatical errors in there, but it was very rushed.
Well, I tell you what, and I'm not patronising you, you did a damn sight better than I would have done. I'm supposed to be a journalist, and my command of the English language in terms of writing has seriously deteriorated, Natalie. I commend you on that. I mean that sincerely. Chief Whip, Diary of a Dominatrix and Whipping Up a Storm. They're available at good online book shops and elsewhere. Just look them up. And they really are important.
Well, Chief, you can't buy Chief Whip anymore. That was sabotaged by George and his bunch.
Oh, that's right, Natalie, you can't. That's right. Yeah. There must be copies of it available online, though. People who've read it and are selling it.
You can't order it. Obviously, I own the copyright, and I could obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another story. I'm going to have to litigate to get my to get the what do you call it? The access to the. I mean, I've got the book. I could reproduce the book myself, but whatever occurred, they literally will have stopped me even getting that book released.
Yeah.
But what happened is that they changed all the names in that book. I then wrote Whipping Up a Storm and put all the names in the book. So really, I'm not really worried about Whipping Up a Storm, Chief Whip, because Whipping Up a Storm does exactly what I wanted it to do, which is to name everyone. Which is ironic that not one of the ministers or politicians or actors or anyone in that book has said a word.
Has ever issued a writ against you at all, and I'm well aware of this.
Nothing.
This is important. I've got to ask you this. A number of listeners, including Gary in Scotland, want to know your opinion on this. Do you think when they were doing those disgusting psychotic rituals with the baby pigeons, do you think one of the reasons they were doing it was to compromise the person taking part in it, Natalie? Because if you do that to somebody and you photograph that, and they might have even used the old video cameras we used to have years ago, you've got that person in a bind. You've got that person in a seriously compromised situation where you can hold that over them in the future. Do you think that had anything to do with it?
Absolutely. And I can guarantee you that whoever that person was, or persons, because I'm sure it probably happened to more than one, they have photos. And God knows who he is or what he's doing in life right now. But I can guarantee you this, they have him in a bind, because the last thing that person will ever want is to have a photo released of a pigeon up his backside.
Yeah.
And so I think part of their rituals is to compromise somebody and to keep them, it's almost like blackmail, basically, and I think that goes on a lot, and that's why a lot of people don't talk about certain things. They want to go on record, but they can't.
Do you know when you were providing, and I know Chief Whip, Chief Whip is brilliant because there's some funny stories in there as well. I mean,
it was more explicit that one.
It was explicit, yeah. It was definitely explicit, and you know, when some of these, what would we call them? You know, the captains of industry, the judges, the politicians. But when they were coming for dominatrix services because they had certain fetishes and things, do you think again, Natalie, that again some of that was being recorded by somebody or photographs were taken again to compromise that individual further down the line? You're going to vote for this. You're going to do this when you're told. Do you think that was going on?
You know, looking back on it now, I think that I don't know for sure if that was their plan, but I do know that, first of all, I'll give you an example. The 1994 photos that were taken that George and apparently Karen was there.
Is that the photograph with the cocaine on the table?
No, that's. Oh, sorry. No. 1994 was the same year. Yeah, it was the same year where I had the picture of me and George with the cocaine on the table.
Yeah.
But 1994 is also when I sent my girls to the Bullingdon, to Nat Rothschild's estate in Waddesdon Manor. The photographs that were taken there of the girls and the guys and doing what they were doing, you will never see one photo. Now, they've taken the copyright, being bought out. They bought the copyright from the photographer. Presumably George did that, or somebody, to do with him. You'll never see those photographs ever again, because somebody's whoever was there, who I know was there, but whoever else was there, that's probably in the bottom drawer now, probably in the bottom drawer of the Daily Mail, and one day they can pull it out. As long as they have those photos of the prostitutes and the cocaine, etc., whoever's there, is now compromised.
You said something to me.
They absolutely planned that.
I'm going to mention this now. We won't mention any names at all. Natalie said something to me today, and she's not talking about herself. But Natalie said to me today that she knows of women who have worked within the sex industry and who have come across these guys. Some of these women have been approached in the past by...
You can talk about her. I'm quite free. Absolutely.
No, but the point I want...
we can talk about it freely.
But the point I wanted to make was, because it's a really interesting point, was sometimes the national press will find somebody like Natalie or somebody else, and they will come to say, we want this story, and sometimes they'll offer money. But the lousy bastards, and I'm going to swear now, the press, they don't. They actually want to bury it, don't they? They don't actually want to put it out. Now, I want our listeners to listen to that again. Explain that, Natalie. They sometimes come looking for details, not to you specifically, but to others. But they don't really want to publish it. Explain that.
I'm going to be really honest about this. Obviously, I've been approached on numerous occasions by various newspapers. The reason why I don't want to mention the newspapers... Don't mention them. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'll give you an example. I've been approached. I'll talk about me, and then we can talk about someone else. we'll talk about the other girl. Well, she hasn't spoken to them. But what they will do is they'll approach, for instance, when the Ashcroft book came out, a particular newspaper approached me, offered me quite a lot of money in order to... They wanted to know stuff about David Cameron. I gave them what they wanted, because obviously certain things that I can't say out publicly, but I gave them information. They then pay you and then they literally pay you, and they don't publish it. They want it. Now, they take what they know. Cameron probably will be told, yep, we have this on you, but we're not going to do anything about it.
Natalie, you've summed the whole thing up. Do you know what happens? In a couple of years' time, the system, the agenda, wants Cameron to feck off.
They actually,
but he won't.
He's actually disposable now.
Well, this is it. And Cameron says, well, no, I'm going to stick around for the next election. No, you won't. Because ultimately, these guys are just puppets. However wealthy and however privileged they are, these guys, we should never forget, are just puppets. And a load of people have tweeted and emailed the same thing, that they believe that so much of this is about blackmail. Gary was on to say, why do so many bullshit laws get passed? Maybe it's because of bribery. Angela was on to say, the initiations are held as blackmail. It's how they all get in the clubs. The worse the act, the higher access they have. Now, Natalie, I'm not going to ask you for details, because I respect what you said to me today. But you've just given us the impression that what Ashcroft was saying that Cameron was getting up to is really only a drop in the ocean. That you know that they were getting up to a lot worse. Wow.
And that was just a warning, because Ashcroft knows more and has the evidence. Cameron knows that. When Cameron comes out with I've got the economy to run, I remind you that's exactly what George Osborne said when it came to my story back in the day. I have the economy to run. I'm telling you now, they know they don't want to open up a can of worms that they can't put back in the can, bottom line. But for some reason, from what I'm getting from the media that have approached me, they've had enough of Cameron, for whatever reason that may be. Cameron didn't decide to leave because he wanted not to be Prime Minister anymore. He had no choice.
Which is what I was getting at. I think you've summed it up perfectly. David, have a look at these photographs. Right, you'll be stepping down now in 2 years like a good boy, and we'll be putting somebody else in. That's really what we're up against. Sam was on to say, Sam Noble, how you doing, Sam? The fact that Natalie hasn't been sued says it all.
Yeah, hi, Sam.
Listening in there, and tweeting in. Loads of tweets there. I mean, there's lots of people tweeting and retweeting and making comments. Simon Stewart was a really good guy and looks after the YouTube channel for this programme. Simon says, why don't you do an audio book? There you are.
Why don't I do an audiobook?
An audiobook. So you sit down with a machine and a microphone.
Does that mean I've got a very sexy voice or something?
Well, you've got you have a sexy. There's no doubt about your sexy voice.
Audiobook. I mean, you've got to remember, I had to self-publish my book because
that's right. Yeah.
Because publishers were worried about litigation, and obviously the first book was sabotaged with whoever got to my publisher. That's not a problem. I would love to do an audiobook. If I had thought there was enough interest, of course I'd do it, and I will do that. If that's something that's an option, I will.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, you could do it, record it, and then have the audio file as a digital download that, people could obviously, there obviously would be a charge they could pay to download it. It's certainly something to look into, I think, as well.
I will absolutely look into that, and if it's possible, I will do it without a doubt. Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Is that for people that can't read, that are impaired, or?
Well, it serves two purposes. It is for the for the sight impaired, number one, but number two, there's nothing better than hearing you tell the story yourself.
Yeah. Do you know something? That's a fantastic idea, and thank you.
Simon, it was Simon's idea, yeah. Do you know, I'm so many of my friends who drive, they tell me now that when they're on long drives, rather than listen to the top 40 on the radio, they actually listen to audiobooks in the car. A lot of that's going on. So there you are. That's something to think about now. Natalie Rowe is on.
I absolutely will speak to my agent, and I think we can do that. Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Andrea says that she's had enough of Cameron, not just because he's a liar or that he has no empathy, but he looks younger the older he gets. I wonder, is he a Stepford MP? Says Andrea. I want to say hello to Martin Houston as well, well-known activist and a good supporter of this programme as well. If you're just joining the show, you've missed a lot. Natalie Rowe is back on the programme. It's terrific to have her on. However, don't worry, because at around about 35, 40 minutes from now, after the programme is over, the podcast will be online. I'll send it to you straight away on Twitter, Natalie, so you can tweet it around her. So if you missed any of it, it'll be on by 10:30 p.m. BST. I think what you've done, I think you've done really well to show people the nature of the psychopathy of these people. They are sick people, Natalie. I'm not saying that because it's easy to say it because it sounds good. They are sick people, aren't they? These people.
And believe me, as I've my profession is a dominatrix. I mean, and also I'm not going to say that anyone that wants to be spanked or tied up or whipped, etc., there's something fundamentally wrong with them. But on the flip side, so how to put this, even though that was my profession, I don't believe that you're not troubled in some way to want to experience that kind of behaviour. But on the other hand, people have it's all consensual. But there are a certain class of people that even when I was in their company and adored me, would still be racist to black people, racist to gay people, racist to lower, people that didn't go to private school, public school.
Homeless people as well. I think the first time you were on with me, you talked about their contempt for homeless people, and one of the things they were doing was burning, £20, £50 notes in front of.
Well, I never witnessed anyone burning.
No, you didn't
money.
see that. No, but you heard about it. You were telling me.
Yeah, no. But what I did see was, in a restaurant. I'll give an example. They ordered some wine, they drank the red or the white. I can't remember which one it was. And decided they're going to pay for the red or the white, whatever it was. And the waiter had no choice. It's like when the police were called at Waddington Manor, owned by Nat Rothschild, the billionaire. The police were absolutely all of them, and they more or less was basically telling the police to bugger off. Nothing to do with it. And instead of in any normal other situation, if that wasn't a council estate, and that situation had occurred where a group of men were harassing and tormenting some females, they would have been carted off. But in that circumstance, you still have that class where even the police are frightened of them. And whoever sent the police to raid me, I can tell them, I won't even say what I want to say on air, but I'm quite aware. Someone said to me once, it's not George Osborne that's sending them, it's somebody higher up.
People, we need to understand that the people Natalie has spoken about tonight, whether it's been Osborne or Nat Rothschild or Cameron, these are the people supposed to be the best that are running the country, that are signing up to illegal wars, bombing poor people around the world, selling off all of Britain's state assets on the cheap, perverting the course of justice. They're the people who oversee
changing the law when it suits
changing
them.
the law when it suits them. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's so in our faces that we're almost paralyzed by it. It's kind of like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're not even hiding it. You know, I mean, Corbyn had to ask Cameron 6 times, what are you going to do about the working tax credit?
No
and
answer.
He didn't answer it.
No answer.
We know why he didn't answer it, because we know what he's going to do. He's going to make sure the working, and it's such contradiction.
You've just touched on something very interesting there now a second ago. You said it's in our faces. I believe that, I know there are people listening to this programme who listen and they're sceptical of much of what they hear. Because we talk about certain conspiracies, we talk about weather modification, we talk about 9/11 and stuff like that. And there will be people listening to this programme and they won't agree with anything that I say or my guests say. But you know what, Natalie? You're credible. And I'm betting you most of the people listening to the programme will think, yeah, I'm not one bit surprised. They do horrific rituals with baby pigeons, George Osborne, Aperture, that's who they are. And then they'll just go back to their bloody popcorn.
Yeah,
And that's what you're saying. And you're right. What is it going to take for people to say enough is enough? What do you think? What's the answer to that?
I think when the government is continuously feeding the public the idea that benefit scroungers, be wary of them. Muslims, be wary of them. Poor people, foreign people coming over, taking what's yours, be wary of them. And if you're in a situation where you're suffering, where you're hungry, where you're trying to feed your child and put money on your electric meter, you haven't got the energy to fight these people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's okay talking about the deficit and the interest rates, etc., when you haven't got a mortgage, when you're just trying to get a roof over your head. And so if you keep the majority of the public worrying about the next meal, do you think to feed their child, do you think they've got time to really get up and fight anything? They haven't got enough energy. They've got enough energy to get out of bed to work out how they're going to feed themselves. That's what they're doing.
Natalie, that's about all we have time for on this show tonight. That's kind of flown by, really. It really has. Thanks for coming back on. It's disappeared,
I made myself quite clear without being
no, you've made yourself very clear, Natalie. Thanks for doing that. Like
Whipping
I said,
up a storm, folks, by the book.
you took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say, Whipping Up a Storm is available online. Go to any good online retailer and read
Amazon, darling.
Well, you see, they're not paying us to say Amazon, but you've just said it now. So,
okay.
So we have to say Amazon. Listen, you're welcome to come back anytime you want. Thanks for
And by
for
the way,
doing it.
P.S., watch this space, because in a couple of weeks, there was a minister that is going to be outed. I've been told not to talk about it today, but trust me, in 2 weeks' time, sweetie, somebody needs to, if they don't resign, we're going to have to ask why.
Well, we'll watch it quickly, and maybe you'll come back on with us in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's going to be out there, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Natalie, great stuff. You can follow Natalie on Twitter, by the way. It's @RealNatalieRowe, @RealNatalieRowe. Give her a follow there. She's very entertaining. She really is. She's got some very important and very, what I would call very savvy opinions about things, but she's also quite funny as well. So follow @RealNatalieRowe. Thanks for coming back on. Look after yourself, and let's talk again soon.
Thank you so much, Richie. I appreciate you having me back, because at least, we have a station where, the BBC don't want to listen or talk about, what I'm talking about. But thank you for being the alternative media that lets the truth come out. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Natalie. Thanks for that, and bye for now. Natalie Rowe on the line to us there from her home in London.